Real stories of werewolves, of dogmen from history, from your emails, illustrated and animated with the democratizing magic of machine learning AI. Welcome to Scary Stories.
Places to find a werewolf. Today we have the third part of our trilogy of episodes inspired by the late great Linda Godfrey's 2019 book, I Know What I Saw, which we have a link to buy in the description. Just so you know, if you use that link, this channel makes a small commission. In tonight's show, we focus on Godfrey's chapter entitled, Where to Find the Werewolf. Now in the book, she skips right over Bray Road, but we'll drop in there to start things off. This is the place in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, where people saw a strange creature eating roadkill at night, back in the 1990s. This is what turned Linda Godfrey from a little-known local newspaper columnist in Wisconsin into a national figure. Maybe she skips over Bray Road in this book because she's afraid of overkill, or maybe it's just because she had admitted to wondering if those sightings might have actually been of a bear with mange. Be that as it may, there were a large number of other cases brought to Godfrey by the public, and she seemed convinced that these were real phenomena, whatever the phenomena actually was. Now you can go to Bray Road and wait around for a dogman to show up, but Linda points out that almost nobody intending to see a dogman has ever actually seen one. It's something that tends to happen when you're intending to do something else. Interestingly, she tells us that people looking to hunt for ghosts or other legendary scary stuff sometimes run into the dogman instead. Take, for instance, then teenager John Lyons and his friends on a gravel road outside Reed City, Michigan in June 2005. The reason they had gathered at this creepy location was to go inside an old abandoned shack that had once been a schoolhouse in the woods. There were stories about this shack. People said that they could hear the sound of children inside there at night. Sometimes they were laughing. Other times they were crying. The owner of the shack admitted to Linda Godfrey that he had heard the creepy sounds himself. At any rate, Lyons and his buddies did not see or hear ghost children on that night. Instead, they encountered a large gray dogman. Going back a second time, they got menaced and bothered by a smaller black-furred dogman who was still large enough to scare them all off. Godfrey joined Lyons and his friends on a return trip to the location in 2006, and she brought along with her a cameraman from the TV show Monster Quest. While it was not caught on camera, Godfrey says she saw the large gray one for a brief moment. It was facing away from her, only about 30-40 feet away, and she said she saw its spine. It then moved out of the light as she called to the cameraman to shoot where she was pointing. That was the only time Linda Godfrey ever saw a dogman in real life, and it was in those spooky woods outside Reed City, Michigan. There are some habitats where she says it seems you might have a better chance of seeing a dogman. Those include graveyards, deserted buildings, campgrounds, and military bases. Seminary Woods is a little bit of forest located just a wee bit south of Milwaukee. It's Hardley Wilderness located in the city of St. Francis. There is an old cemetery in those woods, and people have seen the dogman there, or something looked just like it. One witness wrote to Godfrey about his dogman sighting, telling her he had gone to the location because of the rumor that it's haunted by a black-robed monk. There had been no stories that he had heard about dogmen or werewolves in that area prior to his own experience. This happened in June 2005 at around 10 or 11 at night, when the witness entered the old cemetery with his friends. The small group became aware they were being watched by a creature over 6 feet tall, standing only about 50 feet away. It had the head of a wolf, and it was entirely covered in black fur. The group ran back the way they had come, hearing the beast following on their heels. As they got out of that forest, they said the creature let them go, emitting a howl that was, they said, half pain and half anger. Sometimes, as mentioned earlier, the best way to find a dogman is to look for ghosts. In Oak Creek, Wisconsin in 2007, 4 young people were on East Fitzsimmons Road, which was known locally as a haunted lover's lane. It's a road that becomes more of a dead-end trail, and it leads to a bluff dropping straight down to the beach far below. The 4 teenagers were there hoping to see a ghost, when a werewolf-type creature leaped out at them instead, chasing them back to civilization. Godfrey got out to the location within days and did find large dog tracks around the cornfield that the monster is said to have risen out of. In fact, even Bray Road has a number of haunted houses on it, so there does seem to be some kind of connection between hairy canine cryptids and haunted locations. Godfrey says she spent a night once in a haunted house on Bray Road. She did not have any paranormal experiences there herself, but she was told plenty of scary stories by those who had. The haunted New Hampshire cemetery. A man wrote to Linda Godfrey saying that in mid-October 2014, he came home around 12:30 a.m. and saw outside his house what he at first thought was a deer. It was across the street from his home, walking through the first layer of trees in the forest. It was very thin, but he realized it was not a deer, because it was walking on its hind legs. He said it appeared to have come from the local graveyard and was moving quickly through the edge of the woods, making little poodle steps. It was soon out of sight, heading toward an area that had a number of houses in it. The witness felt it might be looking for a shed to sleep in near the church. I don't know. What if it was like that old Stephen King movie, and it was actually the preacher of the church instead? Oops, I guess that was a spoiler. German military werewolves. Godfrey is from a similar background to myself, as she comes from a German Lutheran family. This German connection seems to have brought stories to her from that country, which has a lot of werewolf sightings, to be honest. Godfrey speculates that these monsters might be the descendants of experiments by the famous Mustache Man from World War II. She thinks he might have been experimenting to create werewolf super soldiers, but this just seems to be a wild guess on her part, as she doesn't really back it up with any evidence. She does tell us some creepy stories, though, such as the following one. This is the story of what is known as the Moorbach werewolf. At the Hahn Air Base in Germany in 1988, the legend of the Moorbach werewolf was well known to the servicemen, but few of them took it seriously. One night, a patrol group came upon some strangely mutated deer carcasses, and then they heard a loud, fierce howling. Another unit called in saying they were pursuing a large dark canine that was headed for the command center. The sergeant reported that he saw a large dark dogman clear a 9-foot fence before turning to gloat that he had escaped his pursuers before disappearing into the night. The Massacre Burial Grounds. There is an area near the Manistee National Forest in which there was once a massacre of the Potawatomi tribe by an invading force of the Iroquois people back in the 1600s. Men, women, and children were hastily buried all over the forest, and many feel that this is what makes the place so incredibly haunted to this day. There is a witness we will refer to as Brad, who claimed to Godfrey to have had 3 separate dogman experiences in this exact location, where he was living with his dad back in 2016. All 3 of his sightings happened that year, and I'm going to tell you about each of them in the order they happened. Now, all of these sightings were made on the 30 miles of farm, woods, and creeks that his family owns. February 8th, 2016 at 3:52 a.m. Brad got up at 3 a.m. in a raging snowstorm to clear the driveway so that the propane delivery scheduled for later that morning could happen. He heard a splash from the nearby creek and stopped what he was doing to see what was moving about over there. He was expecting to see a deer, but that is not what made the noise. In the darkness of the woods next to a huge oak tree, Brad could make out yellowish eyeshine, standing what appeared to be 7 feet up off the ground. Well, as frightened as Brad was to see this, apparently the creature he was seeing was just as scared. It took off with a superhuman rush of speed toward the west, and then it leaped up into the air, scrambling to the very top of a tall tree in seconds. The witness then describes the sound of treetops clanging against each other. That was the word he used, clanging. And it seems that the creature was using his weight and momentum to ride one swaying tree until he could leap to the next, and then the next, and then the next. It was sort of a reverse Tarzan or reverse Spider-Man kind of an escape. I've never heard of such a thing before in terms of Dogman, and in fact even Linda Godfrey wondered if Brad might have seen a Bigfoot in this particular instance. Brad's second Dogman sighting of 2016. March 24th, 2016 at about 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon, Brad walked along the creek and found it weirdly silent. He didn't even hear any birds. As Brad rounded a curve, he saw about 50-60 feet in front of him what he at first took to be a black bear, messing with something on the ground on the side of the creek. By accident, Brad broke a twig loudly, and that black-furred creature stopped what it was doing and stood up on its hind legs to look in Brad's direction. When it did so, Brad no longer thought he was looking at a bear. It appeared now more like a black werewolf or dogman, standing up on its hind legs and looking behind itself in his direction. It didn't seem to be able to see Brad, who was hiding from it, and so the creature lifted its nose in the air and began sniffing the wind to see who was there. At some point it did notice Brad, who grabbed his weapon but was too afraid to make a move in any direction. The beast snarled at Brad and his life flashed in front of his eyes. But then it made a leap of about 25 feet and raced off toward the trees, where Brad imagines it rode away on the treetops like that previous one he had seen. To be clear, the first one was gray, and the second one had black fur. Shaken up by the situation, Brad decided to confide in his father. Well, Dad told him he was crazy, and told him to stop speaking nonsense. So Brad stopped talking to his father about any of this. Brad's third Dogman sighting of 2016. May 29, 2016 at a little before 9 p.m., Brad and his father were having a fire down by the creek. His dad asked him to go get some more wood from back behind the pole barn, and Brad was less than enthused about the idea of it. Still, he walked off into the dark area, where he suspected he might run into one of those dog-headed creatures that his father didn't believe in. The area where the wood was stacked was silent, like no crickets, no frogs, no owls, no nothing. Brad lit up a cigarette to calm his nerves when he heard a sound that sounded to him like someone zipping up a zipper. Peering out into the night, Brad thought he saw something moving. Just then, a horrible stench hit him. It smelled like every disgusting thing you ever smelled, all mixed together. Brad figured out something must have died over there, and so he shone his flashlight around, tried to locate the source of the odor. That was when he heard a deep guttural growl. He shone his light in the direction of that growl, and he saw red glowing eyes reflecting back over 5 feet up off the ground. Once the eye shine caught his attention, Brad said he could make out that the creature's front paws looked a lot like hands. The creature then reared back and seemed almost double in height, standing now on its hind legs, probably over 8 feet tall. It growled again, and then took off to the south. Feeling a bit in a state of shock, Brad wandered back to the fire where his dad asked him where the firewood was. Realizing he better not tell his dad the truth, Brad just said he felt sick and went home to bed. The Cave Werewolf of Hagerstown. In Hagerstown, Maryland, there is a mountain known locally as Red Hill because the clay is red. Linda Godfrey received a letter from someone claiming that his dad's generation used to always see a werewolf up on this mountain. Eventually, his dad and his dad's friends decided to go look for this werewolf so they could see what it was up close. While they were investigating Red Hill, they discovered caves. So they went and got themselves some ropes and some weapons and some flashlights, and they returned to investigate this cave system that they had discovered. In some areas, they had to squeeze through narrow passages, and in other places they needed to climb up to ledges. They discovered ancient Native American cave paintings, proving that they were far from the first people to be inside those caves. The group was proceeding deeper and deeper into the cave, when suddenly, something reached out from the darkness and grabbed one of the men by his wrist. Somehow he managed to break free of the monster's grip, and the men began their long, slow escape from this underground hellscape, knowing that the creature they went in there to hunt was now at their back hunting them. Godfrey goes on from there, but if you want to hear more, I suggest you use the link in this video's description to pick up your own copy of this book called I Know What I Saw by Linda Godfrey. If you use our link, this channel makes a small commission. But the main point in all of this seems to me to be this. You can't really plan to see a dogman. Or maybe you can if you intend to see ghosts. The only person in any of these stories who set out trying to see a dogman and then did is Godfrey herself, in that old episode of Monster Quest. Sadly, it was not captured on camera, but I do remember the moment of her pointing and saying she could see it on that old episode. If I were you, I would not seek out a dogman experience of my own. It's the kind of thing that happens to you when you least expect it anyway. But if you do go out there looking for a man-eating monster, at least go in large numbers. At least go out there with some protection. Because when you go out into dark, lonely, creepy locations, you never know when you're going to run into the dogman. After all, he can't afford the rent in the city anymore. Whether you're a sir or whether you're a madam, you'll not find a cooler executive producer than our Mr. Adam. Please join me in thanking Adam Friday for making this episode possible. Adam got to see this week's new Secret Members Only story, and he's going to get to see both the new Scary Members Only stories this weekend. If you'd like to see them too, then listen to what this next little guy has to say. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button. Or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.